What's going on, guys? My name is Richard and welcome back to another stock market outlook video. This is a series I post every single Saturday here on my channel to make sure you guys are staying up to date with the current trend of the market. And as always, we'll cover the price action of the major indexes, talk about how my previous watch list, which I post every single Sunday, did over this past week, and then finally we'll round off the video by talking about the most recent IBD big picture article and the current Gmi Signal from wishingwealthball.com. And if at any time you find my analysis helpful, please go ahead and leave a like down below. It really does help me out and my channel. And also, if this is the first video of mine that you've seen, welcome to the channel. I post videos just like this one talking about stock indicators and strategies each and every week. So if you're interested in that type of thing, go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. But getting into the video, let's talk about the weekly timeframes on the major indexes. And I think it's always helpful to kind of take a step back and look at the overall trend. And you can see that right now we've been trending above this 200-week moving average for quite some time, and we're in a long-term bull market. And currently we didn't breach that line right here, so currently this trend is still valid. And within that, you can see the rapid correction we've had, and now the rapid V-shaped recovery that we just finished this past week as the Nasdaq hit new all-time highs and is approaching that psychological 10,000 level. And overall, taking a look at the week, the Nasdaq was up 2.81% and finished right near the high of the trading range, which is very bullish. And taking a look at the S&P 500, you can see it was even stronger than the Nasdaq, up 4.91%. And once again, we finished right near the top of the trading range. And also an important thing to note with the SPX is we're now in the second week above the key 30-week moving average, and that 30-week moving average is now increasing. So officially, we've started a Stan Weinstein stage 2 uptrend, which is very bullish. And lastly, taking a look at the IWM, the Russell 2000 index, you can see it also had a very strong week, up 8.12%, and it also reclaimed that key 30-week moving average, meaning it's no longer in a stage 4 downtrend. So once again, I think that's a very bullish signal, and that coupled with the fact that now we are in a stage 2 uptrend on the SPX and NDX means that in the long term, we are going higher. Now that doesn't mean we won't have pullbacks and slight corrections along the way, and you have to be ready for those. But I think overall, we will have a continued bull market. But you should be ready for anything and be prepped and have a plan for whatever happens next week. But for me, at this point, the short-term trend is up, the intermediate trend is up, and the long-term trend is also up as well. So now that we've talked about the weekly timeframes for these major indexes, let's go through some other key ETFs. So first, taking a look at gold, it had a bad week, down 3% overall. And this, I think, is a reflection that the overall stock market is doing well, which will hurt gold in the long run. Next, taking a look at VIX, the Volatility Index, you can see a positive sign for the bulls that it was down 10.87% on the week. And that's great because if you're a trend follower, you want that volatility to be as little as possible. And next, taking a look at the XLF, you can see it had a very strong week as well, although it's still below a declining 30-week moving average. So it's still in a stage 4 downtrend, but overall it made some good progress, up 12%. And if it has a couple more good weeks, it could resume a stage 2 uptrend. And lastly, taking a look at the FFTY, the Innovator Ibd50 Etf, you can see it also had a decent week, although it was up only 1%, and it's still below a declining 30-week moving average. So for an easy dollar environment, I want this to break through this short-term resistance and start a new stage 2 uptrend. All right, so now that we've talked about the weekly timeframes, let's go through the Nasdaq day by day to get a sense of the week. And overall, on this Monday, we had a very strong day, a slight gap down from Friday's close, but then a strong performance, overall up 0.45% and a close right near the highs of the day. And that strength continued on into Tuesday with kind of a flat open, a move downwards, but then a strong recovery and finished right near the highs with the expectation that we continue on higher. And that was true because given on Wednesday, we gapped up a little bit and overall we're kind of flat on the day. And then moving on to Thursday, you can see we gapped down and overall had a negative day. And overall, we were down 0.77% and had a pretty weak close. And keep in mind, I'm not sure if I trust the volume on these past 2 days. I know TC2000 recently has been having some trouble with volume, so please keep that in mind. I know for a fact that the SPX did have a distribution day on this Thursday, although the overall numbers of distribution days is still quite low. And then on Friday, we had a positive expectation breaker, and we had a very strong end to the week, up 2% overall, and it closed right near the high of the day, a perfect end to the week. And at this point, the expectation going into next Monday is that we continue higher. So that is kind of a day-by-day analysis. And now let's talk about how my weekly watch list performed over this past week. All right, so going over to my watch list, you can see that overall, we only had 7 out of 17 stocks finish green on the week. That's the change from the open of the week until the close. But we had some very strong stocks make some big moves, most notably TTD, which I did buy on the breakout and then added to on this past Friday. And overall, it was textbook, a breakthrough the short-term resistance at 327.35. And I actually made a video completely dedicated to analyzing the stock, which I'll link above right now. But overall, a strong end to the week, and I like seeing the volume on the breakout and also slightly increased volume on this past Friday. Moving on, we've got Tesla, which also made a move this week, and it had a breakout on this past Monday, and then overall just kind of went flat for the week. We also had a decent move from FSLY, which had a green dot on this past Monday, but then kind of faded over the course of the week and actually was down 4.85% on higher volume on this past Friday. BYND also made some moves on this past Monday with a green and blue dot on the same day. However, once again, it was kind of flat on this past Monday, but still can make a nice move starting next week. As for the losers, we had Vertex, which really just faded hard and had some strong selling volume on this past Friday. This one definitely needs more time, although it could find support at this 50-day moving average. And next up, we've got MBIX, which was a potential green line breakout. But once again, this faded over the course of the week and had some strong selling volume on Friday. And lastly, we've got ENPH, which also faded over the course of the week, but did have a nice Bollinger Band bounce on Friday, which I did consider buying, but I want to see a continued move upwards and potentially a green dot before I buy shares in this more volatile stock. And lastly, we had a couple other losers such as LVGO and Chegg. Dexcom is a notable one because it had a strong bounce on Friday, which I did buy right here as it bounced off the lower Bollinger Band and its 50-day moving average. So this will be one that I'm looking to add on to early next week if it continues to act well. So that is a quick summary about how my watch has performed. And before we head over to the IBD Big Picture article, I do want to briefly talk about some psychological indicators because to me, this is always secondary to price, but it's definitely important to keep in mind. And as this rally has continued, people have gone very, very bullish, especially on Twitter. And Ben or Pattern Profits posted this great chart right here, kind of highlighting the put call ratio and how you can use it to prepare yourself for a potential pullback or rally. And at this point, people are very bullish. It is at an extreme right here down at 0.65. So obviously this is secondary to price and you should follow the trend, but this is something to be aware of. And I've noticed in my own personal surveys that in the recent weeks, people have been very, very bullish, above 50% last week, the week before that, and close to that on May 22nd. So keep this in mind. This doesn't mean that we have to have a pullback, but it might make it a little bit more likely. So with that being said, let's head on over to the IBD Big Picture article from investors.com. And overall, the title is "The Stock Market Surges on Job Report as Nasdaq Sets Record High and 3 Leaders Hit Key Support Levels." So overall, as we saw in the chart, on Friday we had a big pop, and they say that the positive jobs report could have contributed to that fact, although I have heard some things recently that say that that jobs report could have been inflated or misrepresenting the data, so keep that in mind. But overall, we had a strong Friday on the Nasdaq, S&P 500, and all the other major ETFs. And they talk about Boeing, which also had a strong pop, probably because a lot of people are shorting that at this time. The Russell 2000 had a 3.8% advance on Friday, and overall the IBD50 rose 1.7% as well. And you can see that they talk about the jobs report right here. It was a big expectation breaker with a bunch of jobs gained as opposed to lost, which is definitely a positive for the economy. I would like to see that trend keep on going. And they also talk about how on Thursday, it was a distribution day on the Nasdaq and S&P 500. But they also talk about how there's a lack of institutional selling because we only have one on the Nasdaq and one on the S&P 500. And they also talk about some key stocks, Dexcom as it found support, as I talked about. Domino's Pizza was suffering. Vertex was down as well. But they also talk about Netflix, AMAT, which could be good stocks to watch going forward. So that is the IBD Big Picture article. And overall, the current outlook is a confirmed uptrend. And as I said, we are very low on distribution days. So next, talking about the Gmi Signal, it is currently green since April 27th. And overall, the GMI score is a 5 out of 6 on this past Friday. So from IBD, my own analysis, and wishingwellpaul.com, you have the green light. In my view, this is a confirmed uptrend, and I'll be looking to take up long positions going forward, although I will be ready for whatever happens, including a pullback. So that is my overall view that we are in a confirmed uptrend. I hope you guys enjoyed this analysis, and please, if you did, go ahead and leave a like down below. And as I said, if you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe as well. But thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in future videos.